Introduction to Cognitive Linguistics. Cognitive linguistics is an approach to language study based on the assumptions that our linguistic abilities are firmly rooted in our general cognitive abilities. In this approach, meaning is essentially conceptualization, and grammar is shaped by usage. Cognitive linguistics is not a single unified theory, but a collection of approaches sharing common ideas and goals. It grew in contrast to Chomsky's theories, adopting an empiricist view that language is learned through experience, interaction, and general thinking skills rather than being an innate system. Instead of viewing language as a separate mental module, cognitive linguistics emphasizes its connection to everyday cognition and communication, with patterns emerging from actual usage. What draws the various strands of cognitive linguistics together is the cognitive commitment. All cognitive linguists are, or should be, committed to providing a characterization of the general principles of language that is informed by and accords with what is known about the mind and brain from other disciplines. It is this commitment that makes cognitive linguistics cognitive, and thus an approach which is fundamentally interdisciplinary in nature. Following from the cognitive commitments, there are a number of assumptions that underlie the work of cognitive linguists. First, cognitive linguists share a usage-based view of language. Grammar is shaped by usage, so in order to understand how languages are structured, how they have developed historically, and how they are acquired by individual learners, we need to study how they are used. Second, cognitive linguists aim to show that speakers can build up language system from usage by means of general cognitive abilities, such as perception, attention, memory, categorization, and abstraction. These core general cognitive abilities are mainly studied outside of the discipline of linguistics, within the cognitive sciences. Third, cognitive linguists believe that language exists in order to convey meaning. All elements of language are meaningful, including grammatical construction. Meaning, for cognitive linguists, involves conceptualization, is embodied and encompasses both dictionary and encyclopedic information. History. Cognitive linguistics originated in the late 1970s when linguists dissatisfied with the generative paradigm's focus on autonomous formal grammar began exploring approaches that emphasized meaning, function, and the connection between language and general cognition. The movement gained coherence in 1980 with Lakoff's Metaphor We Live By and Langaker's Foundations of Cognitive Grammar. In 1989, the field formally took shape at the Duisburg Symposium, where the International Cognitive Linguistics Association (ICLA) was founded, alongside the journal Cognitive Linguistics and the book series Cognitive Linguistics Research. Early cognitive linguistics research focused on issues generative grammar struggled with, such as prototypes, radial categories, metaphor, metonymy, and the meaningfulness of grammar. Over time, the field expanded into all areas of linguistic analysis, producing diverse strands like cognitive grammar, construction grammar, mental spaces and blending theory, the neural theory of language, and usage-based approaches. Today, cognitive linguistics has a strong institutional presence with multiple book series, at least 14 specialized journals, a biennial international conference drawing nearly 500 participants, and 16 regional associations. University courses in cognitive linguistics are increasingly common, and interest extends to related fields such as language acquisition, psycholinguistics, clinical linguistics, psychology, philosophy, and computer science. Philosophical stance. Cognitive linguistics, or CL, is not a single unified theory, but a collection of related approaches that share certain assumptions and research interests. In its early development, CL often positions itself against Chomskyan linguistics, reflecting a contrast between its empiricist orientation and Chomsky's rationalist framework. While Chomskyan theory views language as an autonomous mental module guided by universal grammar and genetic predisposition, CL rejects these ideas. The modularity hypothesis, further 1983, claims that language is governed by a specialized autonomous mental module separate from other cognitive systems. On the other hand, the modularity hypothesis argues that syntax is autonomous, functioning independently from other aspects of language such as morphology, phonology, semantics, and pragmatics. Within the Chomskyan framework, syntax is described using distinct formal principles, for example, binding or export theory, and core syntactic phenomena like phrase structure, control, and binding are assumed to require uniquely syntactic explanations. In contrast, cognitive linguistics assumes that linguist knowledge is deeply integrated with general cognitive abilities such as perception, attention, memory, categorization, abstraction, creativity, and theory of mind. A key focus in recent years has been embodiment, the idea that cognition and therefore language is shaped by our bodily experiences and interaction with the physical world. Cognitive linguists reject the idea of autonomous syntax. They argue that syntax is best understood in relation to semantic, pragmatic, and even phonological factors. The cognitive linguist view of syntax is often misunderstood as claiming that syntax can be directly derived from semantics, but this is inaccurate given the diversity of syntactic structures across and within languages. Instead, cognitive linguists maintain that syntax is motivated, not determined, by semantic, pragmatic, discourse, and social factors. Although such explanations are usually post hoc and not absolute, they reduce the apparent arbitrariness of grammar, making it easier to learn and more stable. Unlike traditional linguistics, which often pursues broad, highly abstract rules covering wide ranges of data, cognitive linguistics highlights the importance of low-level generalizations and specific stored examples. Language proficiency may rest as much on knowledge of particular utterances and constructions as on abstract principles. The encyclopedic versus the dictionary meaning. Cognitive linguistics places a strong emphasis on semantics, focusing not just on reference or truth conditions, but on how speakers conceptualize situations. Meaning is seen as inherently tied to syntax, often schematic and shaped by viewpoint, figure ground alignment, and contextual grounding. Importantly, meaning is viewed as encyclopedic in scope, potentially drawing on any aspect of knowledge associated with a form, many of which may become conventionalized over time. This contrasts with Chomskyan linguistics, which treats words mainly in terms of their syntactic properties, category membership, subcategorization frames, theta roles, relegating richer aspects of meaning to the encyclopedia as non-linguistic. Thus, ignoring encyclopedic meaning leads to a limited account of semantics and overlooks the dynamic interplay between word meanings and their usage contexts. Background cognition. Cognitive linguists reject the idea of hidden deep structures and transformations, seeing syntax as transparent. However, semantics is recognized as far more complex, involving significant background cognition processes in even simple utterances. This has led to influential theories within cognitive linguistics. 1. Conceptual metaphor. Lakoff and Johnson, 1980, argues that metaphor is not just a figure of speech, but a fundamental part of human thought and cognition. We understand abstract concepts by mapping them onto more concrete, embodied experiences. 2. Force dynamics, Talmy, 2000. Explains interactions in terms of relative strength and tendencies of entities central to causation, permission, prevention, and modality. 3. Conceptual blending, Fauconnier and Turner, 2002. Combines elements of different mental structures into new emergent meanings, widely applied to metaphor, narrative, and non-linguistic thought. 4. Subjectification. Langacker, 1991 to 2008, examines how expressions encode the relation between a speaker, conceptualizer, and situation, ground, important for tense, modality, epistemic stance, and meaning change. Language acquisition. Cognitive linguistics views language acquisition as grounded in general cognitive abilities and social interaction, not in a genetic blueprint. According to the usage-based model of grammar, children acquire language through exposure to contextualized utterances, shaped by learning processes and their ability to understand others' intentions. Some cognitive linguists showed that children's language use is largely based on pre-learned chunks, with creativity tightly constrained by prior input.